to Wasatch Weekends for this October 8th Sunday edition. I'm your host, Ben Roof. On today's show, we've got a health expert stopping by to give us a little bit of tips on how to avoid early stage breast cancer. We've also got an author and illustrator pair stopping by to tell us about their new book, The First Cat in Space and the Soup of Doom. And then we've got a credit report expert stopping by to give us a couple bits of advice on how to help manage that credit report. But first, a quick local announcement. The local nonprofit Peace House is hosting their Be the Light March on Maine event today. And that event is going to help support both Domestic Violence Awareness Month and help the Peace House foster their mission in helping provide for the victims of domestic abuse. Over the course of the march, 193 shoes are going to be on display over the whole stretch, and those represent the men, women, and children that the Peace House has helped over the last year. If you wish to participate, head over to thepeacehouse.org to register for the event, and I hope to see you out there. But first, let's kick the show off with a little bit of local weather.
This weather report is brought to you by Sun and Ski Sports, your new mountain sports headquarters.
Welcome back to the show. As we're starting to get into fall, one of the things we always like to do is check in a little bit on our health. And we've been talking a lot about infectious diseases, especially with COVID on the horizon and recently in the past. But let's shift our focus a little bit and talk a bit about breast cancer awareness. It is, after all, Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And Dr. Catherine Yao from the American College of Surgeons is joining me now. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. So tell us a little bit about just some of the basics in breast cancer screening and why women should pay attention to getting screened, and what are some of the things to look for to indicate that it might be time to get screened.
So the U.S. Preventive Task Force came out with recent recommendations that women should start start their mammogram at age 40. And this is in line with most of the societies out there that are recommending that women start at age 40. The U.S. Preventive Task Force is recommending age 40 every other year up to age 74. Most other societies are recommending an annual mammogram starting at age 40. It's important to get a screening mammogram. Screening has been shown to decrease mortality from breast cancer. And screening finds cancers at a smaller size and an earlier stage. So that means they're more curable and less aggressive treatments.
Well, and it's my understanding that ideally we go get screened before we're starting to feel anything, before we're starting to experience symptoms, and hopefully it can be caught early enough that it's not really a major issue, as opposed to letting it develop and grow to the point where it can be something that majorly impacts our lives. So tell me a little bit about some of the risk factors that maybe led that federal task force to kind of push that age a little bit younger.
So there are many different risk factors for breast cancer. We put them into categories of modifiable risk factors, meaning risk factors that you can impact, and risk factors that you can't impact. So risk factors that you can impact would be things like watching your weight, making sure you're eating healthy, making sure you're not drinking too much alcohol, and trying to avoid hormone replacement therapy when possible. Risk factors that we can't modify would be things like your family history. You can't modify your family history, history of previous breast biopsies, or maybe a history of chest wall radiation. I think the most important thing, though, when we talk about risk factors for breast cancer is women should be risk aware. They should be aware of what their risk is for breast cancer and aware of their risk markers. This will dictate when they undergo their screening mammogram and how often they need to see their physician for breast exams.
Makes sense. So what are some of those risk factors that some people should consider? I would imagine that it might require a visit to your doctor to figure out all of them, but I would imagine some of them are fairly easy to figure out just with your own personal history.
It really is best to go see your doctor to discuss your risk factors. There are many models out there that doctors can use to determine your risk. One of the most important ones really is family history. Being aware of your family history. I can't tell you how many times I ask patients about their family history and people just don't know. They don't keep in touch with their family, but it is important to know that. It's a very important risk factor. Another important risk factor is breast density, which you're only going to know that on your mammogram. So there are many different risk factors out there, but I think those are really the most important ones to focus on.
So I don't know too much about this, fairly obviously, but tell me a little bit about how breast density can be an impacting risk factor.
So breast density is the balance between the fatty tissue and the fibrous and glandular tissue in the breast. And again, it's read on a screening mammogram. There are 4 different readings, and the 2 highest readings will put you into what we call a dense category. And breast density has been shown to be a risk factor for breast cancer. So women who have dense breast tissue on their screening mammogram may require a different screening regimen than women who do not have dense breast tissue.
Makes sense. As you're going about pursuing your maybe first mammogram or continuing to look for a treatment center, what are some of the things that you would recommend taking into consideration when you're evaluating where to go for breast cancer treatment or screening?
So I think there's several different things that a woman should consider when she's trying to decide where to get her breast cancer treatment. I would go to a center that specializes in breast disease, a center that has specialized breast programs such as genetics, nutritional programs, plastic reconstruction, lymphedema, preferably a center that's accredited by the National Accreditation Program for Breast Centers, which is run by the American College of Surgeons. And really, most importantly, women should have a team that they have trust in, that they have confidence in, that they know will have their back, that they know they can get a hold of, and they know will develop a personalized treatment plan for them.
And I would imagine that that treatment plan and the team starts with your general practitioner and your normal family doctor.
It typically does. It starts with the family doctor and then often progresses to what we call a breast care team, a team of specialists who are multidisciplinary and take care of all the different aspects of treatment for a newly diagnosed breast cancer patient.
Dr. Yao, is there anything else you want to give our viewers before I let you go? Any more important information?
I would just say that I think the future for breast cancer patients is promising. Since the COVID pandemic, we have seen publication of several large practice-changing trials showing new treatments for different types of breast cancer, even aggressive breast cancers. And these treatments are very promising. So I feel that things are really rapidly moving forward despite the pandemic, and things are looking very promising.
Well, that's a super hopeful note to end things on. Is there anywhere people can go to either reach out to your organization or learn more?
So the American Cancer Society has a great website. They've got a lot of detailed information about breast cancer. The American College of Surgeons also has a wonderful website. If you go to facs.org/breastcare, you will get access to about 7 or 8 different modules that focus on newly diagnosed breast cancer and surgeries for breast cancer. And we are actually using those modules right now in my clinic because we found that they were so good.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for all that great information. Dr. Catherine Yao of the American College of Surgeons, thank you so much for joining us. And we'll be right back.
Thank you for having me.
And we'll be right back after a short break. Welcome back to the show. One of the best things for young kids to start learning reading and really getting into a great habit are kids' graphic novels. And joining me now are the authors of the new book, The First Cat in Space and The Soup of Doom, their second novel, Mac Barnett and Sean Harris. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I gotta say, it looks like the book is gonna be super, super fun. Very much kind of, at least seems to me, in the same vein as like Captain Underpants and some of those books, which were a big part of my childhood when I was in middle school. So how did you guys get inspired to write something like this?
So this book was actually born, it was sort of a COVID project. We wanted to tell the story to kids during lockdown, and we wrote the first book, The First Cat in Space Ate Pizza, chapter by chapter, and shared each chapter as we were going along every Saturday morning to tens of thousands of kids around the world. Which is kind of unusual. Most of the time you're writing kind of alone in your house. But this time we were able to share our work with kids as we were making it up.
So the first book, I guess, came out sort of iteration after iteration. It didn't all get published as one, sort of like my understanding that like they used to do some serialized stories in like newspapers and stuff back in the day, but this sounds like it was a little bit more social media, internet version of the same.
Yeah, I think a serialized story is a great way to think about it, and that not only influenced the delivery, but really the story itself too. It was full of these ridiculous cliffhangers and action and jokes that would recur. I love radio serials, and you know, so many novels were written serially as well.
Well, exactly. That's sort of what I was thinking of, was how the Arthur Conan Doyle and how all of the Sherlock Holmes originated as a serial. And it's great to see.
For sure. And Charles Dickens, you know, I think that like, I mean, look, I don't want to say this, but I think that The First Cat and the Soup of Doom is probably the book that Charles Dickens would have written if he had Instagram.
Wonderful. So tell me a little bit about the story itself. It's my understanding that there's some poison soup involved.
Yeah, there's some bad soup. There's some bad actors.
They're doing bad things, not poor at theatrical performance. Although there are some bad actors in this book too.
There are, yeah. One of the things about creating these books, me and Mac write them chapter by chapter. So he gives me the dialogue, I create the characters and what they look like, and then Mac spins off of those characters. So we still get that serialized feel as we're working on this second book, and which is now going to be a trilogy.
So it sounds to me like your writing process is a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for here? Improvisational and collaborative between the two of you guys, as opposed to, you know, Max showing up with a completed script and then Sean, you filling it all out and creating the images after knowing how the story ends.
That's right, and I think that's actually something beautiful about the graphic novel as an art form. I think sometimes parents can be skeptical of it, or it's seen as less than literary, but actually, graphic novels are best when the words and the pictures are collaborating really closely, and that you get some of the information from the story from the words and some of the information for the story from the pictures. They can be very sophisticated, and kids who are reading graphic novels have to decode the story by getting narrative information from two different places. It's a really cool way to read. It's a great way to learn, and it's just a really fun part about the form.
Well, we have librarians on our show fairly often, and one of the things that they really drive home about the graphic novels is that in our crowded visual information environment, graphic novels are a great way to train kids how to quickly and easily identify and gather information in a complicated visual environment. but like graphic novels have been a huge staple, at least since I was a kid growing up. And it was one of the ways that I really got into reading, and even with some of the more adult graphic novels like The Watchmen. So tell me a little bit more about how you guys got involved in writing books targeted towards kids and how you decided on a graphic novel format.
Sure. I've always loved kids' books. I think kids are just some of the best, most adventurous, most intelligent readers a writer can have. And I write a lot of picture books, just straight prose for kids. But it's really exciting to be making a graphic novel, especially with Sean. Sean and I have been friends since we were kids. And we were both kids who read a lot of comics. I read a lot of comic strips. So I loved Calvin and Hobbes. I loved Archie comics. I didn't read a ton of superhero comics. I was really intimidated by them. Yes, yeah. Sean was the superhero guy.
Yeah, Superman, Batman, all those. Yeah. So we kind of brought both that love of Sunday comics meets
action comics,
exactly, into this book.
So it definitely seems like you guys have quite a close relationship. Did you guys start writing together and start collaborating when you guys were kids, or was that something that you guys came to as more developed professional artists, kind of rejoining that friendship in a collaborative sense, at least in your professions?
Yeah. No, Sean and I have always made stuff. That has been like the fuel of our friendship since we were little. We made up stories, songs. We would just get cassette tapes and record hour-long conversations between ourselves, which, if you think about it, we invented the podcast, which is very exciting. And
we just didn't have the distribution model together.
It was tough. That was tough. Yeah. But no, making things has always been what we do together. And I think that, these books, they're full of adventure and science fiction and action and jokes, but really at the heart of it, these are friendship stories. And I think that's because, like everything that Sean and I make, they are a document of our friendship.
Well, it looks like the book is going to be an absolutely hilarious and silly adventure that I'm sure parents and kids alike are going to really enjoy. Mac Barnett and Sean Harris, thank you guys so much for joining me. And make sure to check out The First Cat in Space and The Soup of Doom. Thank you guys so much, and we'll be right back after a short break.
This weather report is brought to you by Sun and Ski Sports, your new mountain sports headquarters.
Welcome back to the show. Before we let you go, let's take a quick look at some credit tips from an expert from Experian.
Name and title, please.
My name is Christina Roman, and I'm the Consumer Education and Advocacy Manager for Experian.
Christina, what is the new Smart Money digital checking account? How does it work?
The Experian Smart Money digital checking account and debit card is a digital checking account and debit card offered by Experian. And what's unique about this is that it seamlessly embeds our Experian Boost feature, which allows consumers to add their on-time utility, streaming, rent, payments, and more to potentially boost their FICO score.
So how can consumers who love to spend on pastimes like football, which is going on right now, or holiday shopping manage their budgets?
Yeah, so it's really important to review your spending from last year so that you have an idea of how much you spend every single year. and then start to make a plan for that. So you want to make a budget so that you don't overextend yourself. You want to really manage your credit accounts, make sure that you're staying on top of those. And then you also want to manage your overall credit. So we always recommend monitoring your credit, because then you can see how your spending impacts your credit health. And one of the best ways you can do that is to use Experian's free credit monitoring service, because this allows you to see your Experian credit report and your FICO score, and that can just help you to gauge your overall credit health.
You mentioned credit. What is the best way to build your credit up?
If you're a young adult just starting to build credit, one of the best ways to build credit is to open a credit card, make small charges, and pay it off every single month. You also want to make sure that you're paying it on time. Also, you can be added as an authorized user to a parent's credit card, or you can use our Experian Boost feature, which allows you to add those on-time telecom, streaming, rent payments, and more to potentially boost your FICO score. And I want to encourage you to check out that Experian Smart Money digital checking account and debit card, because it seamlessly embeds that feature and allows you to potentially boost your credit score debt-free.
Great information. Where can we learn more?
You can learn more at experian.com/smartmoney.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Well, that's all the time we have for today's episode of Wasatch Weekends. Don't forget to catch us tomorrow, where we've got a female rally car team stopping by to tell us all about the world of women's rally car racing, and a couple of other amazing guests. Until then, this is Wasatch Weekends. I'm your host, Ben Roof, and I will see you tomorrow.